Hi, it's Sarah Jane here from Natural Heating, and today I have got Beltane Chew. Now, this is a stove that I used to fit a while ago. We used to sell them for a specific purpose that I had in hand, and we used to do them before the Eco 2022 regulations came out. So I haven't actually had one in the shop since then, but I brought them back in just before Christmas because they've actually got quite a good place for what their job is. And it's something that I like because it ticks quite a few different boxes. So I thought I'd light one up today and do a bit of a video. So the stove behind us is called a Beltane Chew. The Beltane Chew is a 4.6 kilowatt nominal heat output with a 4 to 6 kilowatt range. It has good clearance distance to combustibles in the back. It's 150 millimeters clear at the back. It's not great on the sides, it's 500 millimeters, but there's some good points that this can do. It can go on a 12 millimeter thick hearth. It's quite heavy, so it's a good, decent, well-made little unit. It's not actually even that little, it's quite a big unit for a low output unit. So we'll take a closer look at some of its features. So it's got two air controls, two individual air controls, one at the top and one at the bottom. A coal grate and an ash pan. Decent size ash pan, which has a back on it, which many ash pans don't have. And I would say that that ash pan is going to be a good 35 millimeters thick. And it's heavy. The ash pan itself is got to be 750 grams, maybe even towards a kilo. It's heavy. It's not lightweight. It's a bit of a brute. And there's quite a lot of clearance from... You can get this out. It does come out like this, but jiggle. There's quite a lot of clearance from the top of the ash pan to the underside of that grate, as you can see. Now, all the parts come out quite easily, but to get the baffle out, I'm just not going to do it today, but you take the side panels out, the grate out. No, you take the floor side panels out, you take the grate out. You then take the side panels out to get the baffles out. And there's a double baffle in there. And this is the log retainer. Now, the log retainer sits there quite firm. You're not going to knock it over easily. And it sits well back from the door. Now, that does limit the inside depth of the firebox, which is... I'd say about 7 inches deep. I will go and get the tape measure in a minute. And I'd say that's about 14 inches wide. There's a good amount of width in there. So yes, it does limit the depth, but it also means you're not gonna shut the door, shut any logs or anything on the door. It keeps it well back and hopefully stop people putting too much in it. Rambling. ADHD style, I'm afraid. So I'm missing bits. Right, okay. So because we've got an independent top and bottom air control, that means you can independently control the air from the top for if you're burning wood, and control the air from the bottom if you're burning smokeless fuel. Where you need a stove that can do both fuels, you really want the air controls independently. Now, all modern stoves have two lots of air, at least. One at the top and one at the bottom. But where you only have one air control, that one air control is opening the bottom air and the top air at the same time. So when you shut it down, it's always going to shut the bottom air first and the top air off last. So it will prioritise for burning wood, no matter what you put in it. So my general consensus is, if you buy a stove that has one air control, and an optional grate for solid fuel. And there are many brands out there that do that as an option. That is not a true multi-fuel burner because it's always going to prioritise for wood. And there's certain circumstances where people will want to burn smokeless fuel. Not me, because I'm not really into smokeless fuel, but they will want to burn smokeless fuel. And if you really want smokeless fuel, you need two separate air vents, because otherwise you're really not giving yourself the best options of control. For those that only want to burn wood, one air control is great. It really is, because it takes away the issues that you may have learning how to use your fire, because you don't have to think about it. It does it for you. You just turn it up, turn it down. When you've got 2 air controls, you need to really learn to balance it, but it will burn far better when you're burning smokeless fuel. So, I have no idea where I have put my favourite tape measure tonight, so we need to make do with a normal one. But 6.5 to 7 inch deep internal usable firebox space. And look at that, 14 inches wide. Now, standard kiln dried log, when you're buying them from log sellers, are usually between 8 and 10 inch. Most of the bagged stuff, if you're buying bagged, and I use kiln dried birch my test videos, because it means I'm using the same thing every time, so you guys are always seeing what I'm using, and it's a known entity then, because typically it's usually the one brand. Sometimes it's something different, depends what I can get, but it's usually dry as blazes, and birch catches, lights well with good flame. It does burn quite hot and fast, but it's good for getting stoves up to temperature, and I use it as a benchmark. I also use it for troubleshooting. So if I ever get customers with an issue and they're struggling to get a good burn, or they're smoking things up, they're getting back smoking, they're getting all sorts of different issues, we always go back to basics. We start on kiln dried logs, we start on the same fire lighters, we start everything the same, and we work out what the problem is. That's why I always start these videos where possible on kiln dried birch. I buy in logs for burning in here that's got a lot of oak and sycamore and ash in it, which will burn for a lot longer time periods. But for test purposes, kiln dried birch in here. So that's what you'll see in all my videos. You'll probably also see these fire lighters. I love these, I really do. They're £10 for a packet of 100. They're made in Denmark, and they're a solidified fluid. Well, they're a solid, a flammable solid. Smell like nothing, and they're inside a cellulose wrapper. So you just light the wrapper. They smell of absolutely nothing at all. And you get 100 in a tub, and I only use one at a time. So a tub lasts ages and ages and ages. They never give me trouble, and they're just so clean and tidy to use, and it's not a big tub. And it'll fit underneath your kitchen sink or in your log box, and they're just dead easy. So I've got my small kiln dried logs. Now these aren't huge. I like them fairly small for lighting fires, because we wanted to light and get up to temperature nice and quick. So we're going to put these in the bottom of the fire. And as you see, there is loads of space, because that's a 10-inch log and it's 14 inches inside. So I'm going to put them directly over the grate. I'm using small ones to get it up to... I want them to sit in there nice. Right, use small ones to get it up to nice temperature quickly. Right, okay, so there's enough room in there. It's a shallow firebox, but although it's a shallow firebox, there's plenty room in there for a log or two. 2 smokeless is probably enough. Let's just put a decent kindling pile in there. Now, this is kindling that I've chopped myself from old pallets. Now, I like chunky kindling, and this kindling is a good 25mm or so wide. Often, when we buy it in, it comes more like this. And yeah, I do buy it in sometimes because I don't always get time to light it, to chop it. I wish I did. I really love chopping kindling, it's good fun. But as you see, these bits I really like, and these bits are what I like chopping because they're much bigger and chunkier. And these burn for longer, but they still burn nice and hot. Whereas these are just a bit too quick. So where possible, I like them this sort of size, so about 1 inch square-ish if you can. So we're just going to put, means you need less of them, same sort of amount of wood, but less pieces. So there is my fire lighter and some of my kindling sticks. We just lay them on top. And my trusty fire lighter, blowtorch. We we're just going to ignite that, and these just light like a breeze. You don't need a blowtorch, they'll light easily with a match, first time, every single time. Now my air vents are fully open, and I'm just going to let that catch for 10 seconds or so. And then we'll shut the door over and leave it slightly ajar, just to give that a chance to take. Alrighty, so yeah, I'm sitting all grubby on the floor, and it's cold. It's chilly in here because all the fires went out ages ago, and we're probably now about 9 o'clock at night. But I had things to do earlier, and it's nice to get this sort of thing done in peace and quiet without lots of phone calls. And I've got to do my calls sometimes, so I do them quite late into the evening usually. So as you can see, my kindling pile is catching nice and quick. We are already catching onto the third layer. So it should be enough to just close the door. Right, now this stove has got levelling bolts on all 4 feet. So there's just nuts that you wind down to actually be able to level it. There is a heat shield here on the base. It means it can go on a 12mm hearth because it shouldn't put too much heat through the base. And there's another heat shield just like that, that's held on with 4mm button head screws on the back. I've already had them off and had a look because it took it to bits. Yeah, there's a heat shield on the back that means it can go 150mm forward of combustible woolen. It's a convection top, so it doesn't put too much heat out the top, and it is actually also convection, well, type sides. It's a case within a case, and it lets heat out, so it's just quite a nice unit with quite a big glass on it as well. Now, this stove is approximately 600mm high. It's good size. So it's taking off nicely. And this stove is 510mm wide across the top, thereabouts. And the body is about 300 deep, including the door. Let's say 300 deep. It's not got a sticky outy ash lip. Some ash lips stick way out the front. This is quite slick. It's quite slender. So, not a lot of overhang. So, leg to leg depth is 260mm, but it sticks out a little bit further because you've got heat shield on the top that overhangs at the back. Now, you can see this top. This top's not going to get hot enough for things like potato cookers on the top, guys, so nothing like that on this one. You can see there's a gap from the top. So the top isn't going to get too hot. It's going to throw lots of heat out the front. It's got plenty of insulation in there. The insulation panels are about 30mm thick on the inside. It's quite a slow start to get started in there, but then it's been heavy air out there tonight. Maybe I should have left the door open a slight touch longer, but it is taking, and it's taking nicely. It's not roaring away, it's just slow and taking its time. And that kindling pile should take better in a second and catch to the logs down below. Air controls on this one are fully open when they're to the left and closed when they're to the right. And it is 600mm, 2 foot high. It's a decent sized little unit. It's a big stove for a 4.6 that only goes up to 6 kilowatt. Most stoves this sort of size with that size of glass would go 7, maybe even pushing 8. It's a lower output for a bigger looking unit, and you're not really getting an idea of the size just now. The glass on the front of this unit is a good clear 310mm or 2 foot wide. 2 foot? Who is she kidding? 1 foot, 300mm by 285. 11 inches high, so it's a nice big viewing window. So, what do I want this unit for? Well, if you want a budget unit, it's actually a damn good value buy because there's not actually a huge amount of budget units that you can put in front of combustible walls without having to do heat shielding and stuff. And at the heat shielding distance that this is at, with 6-inch clearance at the back, that's really not actually too bad at all. It's not too shabby. So, and the fact that it can also go on a 12mm hearth. We use this stove a lot, extensively, in static and park homes in the past, pre-2022, and it will be good to see how it performs now, because it did really well in that sort of environment before. It had a good enough firebox to give people the scope of putting decent sized logs in. It had good air control and capability, but without being a runaway express train. It pulled well on shorter chimneys. Takes a wee bit of going, but then that's because it's well insulated. It throws heat well out the front. It has got a hollow air-cooled handle. That handle is hollow up the inside. It's open at the bottom, but sealed at the top. So we'll see how hot that gets. It's a lever handle, so for potentially older retired people in caravans, down at the beach, at the seaside, or in park homes, or even people that have just got bad hands, to be able to have a lever handle that you can put pressure on can be a huge bonus. It's got a leg on it, so it's spaced up off the floor. So we're not tight to the floor. It's got a better height on it than some. The handle is at a good height and higher up. So for a budget level stove, it's actually really good value for money. Now, what it won't do is go across corners. It won't go across corners because it's 500mm clearance from combustibles off the sides. That's too much to be able to put it across a corner. You need a more expensive convection unit with higher specification for that. But as long as you're putting it against a flat wall, you can come off the top end twin wall insulated against a caravan or a static home or a log cabin wall in a log cabin office and not have to worry two hoots about it. And this stove retails at $7.99. I think that's the retail price on this. We've got them in the shop for a bit less than that, but we've got plenty of them in, and we've recently put 3 or 4 back into caravans, and they've been performing well. In fact, there was one gentleman had one, came back in for another 2, and then came back in for another one. And that was before I even get time to light it. And this one is going in yet another park type home for a young lady. So it's a good priced unit for what it does and its capabilities. And the best bit of all is it can run, and I don't like smokeless fuel, but it's a multi-fuel. That doesn't mean burn the two together. It doesn't mean burn wood and smokeless fuel. It means burn wood or smokeless fuel. But once you've got it hot on wood, it can burn for a considerable amount of time on smokeless fuel and do its job well. So if you're somewhere that you're off grid, or you don't have much in the way of power, or you're trying to keep your heating costs down because gas bottles cost a fortune and you want to heat a relatively small space, but a big enough space, and it's your main sort of source of heat, this can do really, really well on a tiny budget. There's a lot to be said for that. While I'm yattering, it's doing its stuff, but I can start to feel it on my shoulder. I'm a good way off of it. You can see it's burning nice and clean. It's not a noisy stove. It's not making a racket. It's not a whistler. Some of the stoves, I'm not going to start mentioning names, some of the cheaper budget stoves, when you hear them on a flue system, they whistle like... You hear them sucking air in, it would drive me absolutely crazy. I don't mind the ticking that you get on a stove as it expands and contracts on a steel stove. That's normal due to expansion and contraction. And most of them do that at some point in time. I don't mind a bit of that. And you get that on a convection stove. But the ones that whistle drive me absolutely loopy. And I couldn't stand a whistler, especially not. There's a few of them in the market. Good God, they're awful. They really are dreadful. But this is catching up quite nicely. The baffle is starting to clear a little bit. You can see that glass is nice and clean. The handle's currently stone cold. Absolutely stone cold. I'm trying to do a different view from normal just to see, you can see what it's doing. It's not a bad looking stove. But that bit of extra height, if you've got to have it on the floor rather than having a big fireplace opening, gives you a nice big glass viewing window. It's kind of pretty, isn't it? So my bottom logs have caught, my kindling's well on fire with my upside down fire. We always light them this way up because it heats your chimney faster, so it makes everything pull and heat up far better. And I don't need to really open that anytime soon until it gets up, but it's starting to chuck the heat out quite well. The sides are getting a wee bit warm up here, but yet it's stone cold yet down here. You know, the insulation is doing its job, the air circulation is doing its job, throwing the heat forward and keeping the heat off the sides. Top is currently cold. Still heat in there. It will get hot, but you know, it takes a wee while. I can feel the heat coming through, like the vent spacings on the top and the sides as it heating up. We'll probably sort of start seeing paint going off once the body gets up to temperature. The door's getting hot. Door frame's starting to heat up. Yeah, I can feel the paint starting to get a touch tacky. And the baffle's starting to clear. Right, so my kindling is well burnt down and my little log that's in the bottom is on fire. I'm just going to crack the door, touch and open it. There's no spillage out the front. Now you're not meant to open a stove door anyway when the fire is in full flame. You're meant to be waiting until the flames died down. It's going well now and it's getting up to plenty temperature, so we'll shut off the bottom air and it's now on full top air. And although the baffle isn't completely cleared down, I think we can reduce that down a bit because it's going a bit good guns and we don't need it to be burning that high. We just want it on a mid burn. Now this air control lever is already starting to get hot. If I turn it right down, and it's early days for that, you can hear the total change in the flue draw and you can see the difference in the fire. And it's taking a wee bit of time to burn off the oxygen, but that's a fresh log that's in there. That's a fresh log that's in there and it's on a really low flame. And it's too low because it's black on the inside yet, and that wants to be clear on the inside. Before we do that, get rid of all the carbon and get it up to temperature. Give it about 10 seconds or so to reintroduce the air, feed it back through the firebox, and our fire will pop back into life. A little bit slow if anything on the comeback. Maybe give it a pop more air from underneath just to wake it up a bit. Then I'll turn the bottom air down and leave the top open till that clears down. So when she's not up to temperature, it's a little slow on the comeback, but then we shouldn't be turning it down that quick anyway, not right down. But a little bit down, because we're not looking for like a blarer, we're looking for a roll. See what that's like. This is a reasonable heat output. It's not a banging heat output that just, it's not one of those ones like sitting in front of a Parkway Aspect or a Duckgurts or a Viking Mini 2 or a Heta Inspire 40. It's not like that. It's not a boom, I'm going to get you heat that kicks you right between the eyeballs and you know about it kind of heat quite quick like those ones do. It's a bit more of a slow roller. But although it's a bit more of a slow roller, there's small spaces where you want a nice big glass like this and you don't want a majorly high heat output. And we're not looking for a vicious burn. And I'm not saying the other ones are a vicious burn. You can turn them down more. What I mean is it's got enough power behind it and it's got enough control behind it, but it's a bit more sedate. It's how you're paying a hell of a lot less money. What do you want? If you want a big firebox, a big door, and not a big price tag, and a pretty damn good clearance to combustibles. It's a fine little stove for the money. It's not even little, to be fair. But yet you've also got things that most of those other ones don't have, like the Parkway aspect, the Heta Inspire. The other ones that most of the other ones I mentioned don't have individual upper and lower air control to make it prioritised for smokeless fuel. And smokeless fuel on a longer burn time for not necessarily overnight burns, but to keep it in for longer during those nighttime hours if it's cold and it's your only heat source, and things like static caravans and mobile homes is my main market point for this unit for cost and everything that it can do, and minimising fuel consumption. It's about 80% efficient on wood and 83% efficient on smokeless fuel, so the efficiency rate is good and high. And it's a lot of fire for the money. It's not lightweight either, 70 kilos. So I'm 70 kilos just at the minute. I hope to be less soon, but that's 11 stone. It's pretty much 11 stone dead on. So for people who want to come and pick it up and put it in the back of their boot of their car, it's not too heavy, because, you know, if it sits, I can sit in your boot, but I'm not going to overweight your car, at least I hope not. I can load it with a forklift truck if you're picking it up, so there's no problem getting it in. We can flip it on its back and travel it flat. It will sit in the back of the boot in a hatchback. If people want to have their own fit or self-fit or whatever they're doing in that type of property, as long as you do it safe, then that's up to you. We do have a lot of people fit into log cabins and things on their own devices. And my main thing is making sure that they're safe and they're putting things in right, because I will not compromise on safety. Right, that was just a bit burny, sticking my fingers in there. Don't stick your fingers in there, that's hot in there, obviously. But you can see smoky wisps coming out of there, and it's because the paint is kind of tacky at the minute and going off. Up here is hot, down here, that is not, that's glass fibre. That's glass fibre off playing with ropes. I don't know if you can see the fibres on the top from where I've been sticking ropes on these pipes, but be really careful with glass fibre stove rope. That stuff is awful. If it gets in you, those little hairy bits get in your fingers, my gosh, it hurts. It's not pleasant. Right, okay. There's no heat in that heat shield. That heat shield is currently cold. Cold. Slightly warm here. Cold. It's not putting anything through there, never mind the wall. There's no there, certainly not at the minute. The body casing's getting warm. This gets that it needs 500ml clearance, it says off the sides. When my hand's a couple of inches off it, I can really feel it. I am probably going to melt my jumper, or when me start smoking. I was smoking yesterday when I melted my jacket because I was standing in front of the big wood burner warming me cold bum, and managed to, well, melt me jelly to my bum. My best one, but yeah, there's no heat in the back of that, and that's what I wanted for, because you don't get much more combustible than caravan walls, and I'm feeling nothing coming through there. The sides, yes, the sides are hot, so they can't go too close to combustibles, but you know, I can have my hand near it. So if you were having combustibles, need to be 500ml away, or if you're going to go less, you're going to have to build side heat shielding with an air gap. Follow the HETAS regulations for that, or building control regulations. If you need a data sheet on it and you're purchasing one of these from us, I can show you how to heat shield walls. I'm going to open the vent up, and I'm going to let that wood burn down to chunky red ember, and I'm going to put some smokeless fuel in there, and I will record at what time it is with the smokeless fuel. It says it's 20 to 9, so I would imagine probably about 9 o'clock. I'll load it up with smokeless fuel. I highly doubt it's still going to be going when we come in at 8:30 or so in the morning, but I'll do a video snip again in the morning and see how it's done and if there's any heat still in it. But I do know it can stay in rather quite well, and we'll just see what she does, because that's the sort of purpose that I really want this unit for. See what you think. Right. So handle's warm, It's been quite a while now. The handle's warm, my fire is quite well burnt down. The paint is getting stinky. But that's what paint does in new units. It's nice and clean in there. It's going down to Red Ember. I'm just giving it a shove with my pusher, or my ash rake, out of my pusher and poker set, which we keep, and one of my favourite tools actually. So we're down to a nice chunky Red Ember bed. I've currently got my top air open and my bottom air shut, but I'm going to reverse that in a minute. And I'm going to put some smokeless fuel in here. Because I don't want to get all dirty, I'm just going to use my hand in a bag to put some smokeless fuel in there. Not that I want to melt my hand, but we'll get this going. Not fuel to catch. So when your air gets cold and your fumes get cold, and as your fumes from your stove are cool because it's burning too low, what happens, the cold air is coming down and it can actually push fumes back down. So they don't want you shutting them right down, because these stoves with the baffles in the inside, am I explaining myself very well? The insulated baffles are pushing more heat out into the room, so the chimney gases are cooler than they used to be. And we don't want empty gas in themselves. So carbon monoxide detectors are always a must for any stove anywhere, as it's proper key ventilation if you need it, and making sure that those carbon monoxide detectors are in the wrong place, because if you've put it on a shelf or a mantelpiece and it's far too low, you could be dead before that thing goes off. Pay heed to the instructions of where you put carbon monoxide detectors, because it really is critical. So I have currently got both bottom and top air open, and the grate shows that I can get a nice bed of smokeless fuel in there. I have probably got a couple of kilos of smokeless in there. They're only really one and a half nuggets deep, straight on top of that hot red ember bed. And what I am going to do, now that that's starting to catch, is turn my top air off, because we want the air underneath for smokeless fuel. And then once that bed's caught, I'll probably turn it to about halfway. And then I'm going to go home for the night and just see if it stays at that. I'm trying to keep it in. I want to try and keep heat in it longer. Smokeless fuel has a longer, slower burn. It's good to use wood to get your stove up to temperature first, because when you've used your wood to get up to temperature, you've burnt off any moisture content that would be in the wood, because there's always moisture content even when it's dry. There'd be under 20%, so there's always moisture content. You've burnt all that off, and you're using the residual heat to make it easy to light the smokeless fuel. So this is the easiest way to light smokeless fuel. But we don't want to put logs on top, because when you put logs on top of smokeless fuel, they both burn from the bottom, they both burn from the top. It burns far too hard, and that's how you make enough heat in a power station to melt metal. And that's the sort of thing you're going to do and burn the arse out your grate. Sorry, Mum, she tells me off for swearing. I'm away in the bad books again. With the bottom air open, you can see the gases combusting off through the tertiary. I think we could go a wee bit lower. The top air, yeah, I did that before, didn't I? The top air is shut. The bottom air vent is stone cold. The handle's cool. Now I can see a little bit of smoke forming in that chamber, and I don't really want that. Not now, I don't. I want to burn it clean. So I'm going to bring that temperature back up a little bit to give it a bit more air. You just got to play with balance and find its throttle point. Okay, well, I've been in the office for a while. Definitely not 10 minutes. I have no perception of time. I have just checked my watch and it's currently 20 to 10 at night. This is, I don't know how long. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea how long this has been on, but I was looking at the manual, amongst other things, before I come back through, because I do like checking out manuals. And it does say that it says in the manual, compared to the leaflet that I had, that this stove is a 4 to 7 kilowatt but the other paperwork that I had on it said it was 4.5 to 6. So take what you like out of that. It's round about that anyway. It also says that we're looking for no more than 1.2 kilos of wood per load. It's a small firebox, doesn't need any more than that. I haven't even put that much in there anyway. And on wood, that is 1.2 kilos, and a maximum 2 kilos on smokeless fuel. So on optimum burn, nice and clean, low gases, etc., we are looking at 1 hour reload time on wood, and we are looking at 2 hour reload time in smokeless fuel. Now, I've got this well turned down. It is about quarter to a third open in the bottom air and a sniff open, just a sniff open in the top air, because I want to see what it does. I want to see what it's capable of. Right, so it's the morning after the night before. It's actually 10 a.m. I was a bit late in this morning because I had to go to the chemist to go and pick up my kid's prescription. Anyway, this stove is still warm. I don't know if it's on, I haven't opened the door yet, but it has been 14 hours since I loaded it approximately, and certainly a good 12 hours since I left it. Fans off, but the top is still warm and the door is warm air. Now, if we have a look inside, yeah, I can see from here, we do actually still have some doughy stuff. So, I would say, I'd call that staying in, wouldn't you? Yeah, that's obviously the bars. There's no riddling grate in this. But I would do is, it's warm, but it's not hot, as in the glass. So I'm just going to give it a clean because it was pretty filthy. But then it has been burning overnight. It's certainly not got the sort of cleanliness after an overnight burn that you get from a clock or something else. But you know what? It's done all right. Now, you can't clean glass with ash and water by burning smokeless. You need to use something else or you will scratch it. So I've given it a wipe over with just a damp cloth. And there is still some residue on the glass that's a bit stubborn and doesn't want to come off. So I've got some pink stuff. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's cheap as chips. It's about £1.50 for a great big tub out of the supermarket. And I've just got a damp cloth. And this stuff doesn't scratch. And it's actually quite handy on glass. So I'm just going to give it a wee quick going over. So you can see, I'm doing this backwards, the residue on there. And it actually all comes off really nicely and quite easy. Anyway, you've seen why I like it. Oh, by the way, this stuff stinks in the morning. It smells like rotten eggs. It's not pleasant. So I say to you, I'm not a smokeless fuel person, but for people that are in a static caravan or people that need an overnight burn on occasion, not that you're not meant to overnight burn it because it tells you not to, but this wasn't shut right down and it has managed to achieve at least a 12-hour, probably more like 14-hour, and stay warm. Well, I wasn't in first thing this morning. It was actually Carrie that was in earlier than me, so she'll tell you what was happening with that unit this morning.
I walked in, it was lovely and warm in the second showroom, so I thought, what's burning here? Put my hand over the top of it, still lovely and warm, opened the air vents up, top and bottom, and the lovely bits of coal embers started burning red again.
Yeah, because the vents were already open. I just noticed when I went to go and bring the red bits back, and it was still glowy on the inside when I gave it a rake over. But Carrie was in about an hour and a half before me this morning, so she was in about 8:30, and I haven't come in till 10. So just thought it would be worth having a bit of extra interference. No, that's not the right word, is it, Gary? Yeah. It's a great fun in here. As you can see, we're out in the back of it at the minute. It's all go. There's V at our desk. And I think somebody's just come in the shop, so I better toodle pip and off we go. Right, this little stove I've done with it, it's done its job well, it's done exactly what I wanted for it. It's going out tomorrow because it's already sold. Like everything, there's normally one thing at least that I can find about something that I don't particularly like. And I'd rather disclose everything up front because the way I look at it is if I've told you the things that I don't like, then you're never going to find out that you've bought something from me and I haven't told you about it, because I'll tell you in advance. This stove still earns a place in my shop because it earns its place for various different reasons, but it's still a sort of more budget level stove. But for a budget level stove, it's got a heck of a lot to offer. But this could be mildly irritating. Mildly, maybe quite a bit, depends on how you look at it. And I'll just show you. So, I've taken the ash bar out and I've taken the ash pan out. And when this was burning wood, the grate was actually quite tidy on the inside. But I would have to play with this because I find it a bit annoying, and if I can and I've got time tonight, I'll maybe play with it yet. The inside firebox, now let me show you, this has been burning smokeless fuel. So that falling into the ash pan is not too much of a big deal. But this edge, this ridge, at 2 different heights, means it is an absolute solid firebox. It's just difficult. Why make something difficult when it can be easy? So hopefully I can just get another couple of bits of vermiculite and trim them down. The top of the vermiculite is the same height as the grate. Let me just show you. I hope you can forgive me for the vacuum cleaner here. Let's get Hetty switched on. So forgive me, but you're going to have a video hoover over. Right. So this is cold. It's been more than 24 hours, more like 48 hours since this stove was lit. And here's what I mean. Now, to see the height of that bar, here, I cannot for the life of me understand why these are not the same height as that, or why that is not the same height as these, because it needs lifted up so it's flush. I don't mind the bar sitting down, this bit, sitting down in there. In fact, I don't get that either, because that bar is sitting higher than the grate that's on the other side. It's about 5 mil out, so why the grate sits down, why that sits up, I just don't know. But for cleaning it out with an actual ash shovel, that height differential is a real nuisance. For wood, it's really not a problem. It's annoying. I don't like annoying. It means I've got to fix it. So, you know, it's minor, yes, but if you're burning smokeless fuel, it can do its job, and it did it remarkably well. For an overnight burning. It stayed in. And for a cheaper level, smaller stove for low distance combustibles, that's damn good, but... Right, so me being me, I've got a big piece of cast iron and an angle grinder, and I'm going to cut some metal strips, so let's see what we can do. There you go, I'm actually really pleased with this. I've got quite good with an angle grinder. That's a nice straight line. One of my favourite smells, other than coffee, is actually angle grinding. There's something just lovely about the smell of angle grinders. So these are probably shorter than they need to be, but in the names of science, it'll do, because I didn't want to be able to cut 2 strips of metal. So what I'm going to do is put one of these spacers on either side and put the grate back in. On top. Now look, that's a lot better. Why make something difficult when you can make it easy? Why make something such a damn nuisance for the sake of 11-12 millimetres? It's the grate thickness. Just stick a wee peg leg on the bottom of it just to raise it up, or chop this down. Now, I can't chop this down. Manufacturers, chop this down, make it 10 mil lower, please, 10-12 mil lower, or put little feet on your grill to bring it up. Sometimes the simplest, tiniest things can make the biggest difference. So I'll amend these for my customers, because do you know what? I think they need them amended. But you ain't going to get that if you buy it anywhere else. Guess that's another reason to shop at Natural Heating. You get personalised Sarah Jane touch.